to episode 4 of Keep the Conversation Going. It is me again, your co-host, Natasha Moera, and I'm with...
Chido and Natasha, your other co-host.
Yay. So today we'll be having a conversation about race at work, specifically focusing on Swansea University. And we have 3
amazing women.
Absolutely amazing. Love them. Who currently work in SOM. So we have Jess, she's an employability consultant. We have Karen, she's a recruitment assistant. And we've got Kia, who's an employability coordinator. We'll definitely go a little bit into what they actually do, but I will allow Chido to ask the first question.
So we want to find out more about you guys. We know a lot, but the people don't know. So maybe we can start with Kia. For you to tell us a little bit about your role, what you do, and your journey to how you came into your role as well.
Okay, cool. Well, hi everyone. Obviously, I'm Kia. So I'm currently an employability coordinator, like Natasha said, within the School of Management. So I've been in the role for about 2.5 years now. So I was also a SOM student. So it's nice to see kind of the other side. Yep, repping SOM there. But yeah, so within my role, we focus a lot on kind of year in industry. So helping and supporting students, who want to do a placement year. We support them kind of finding roles and things like that, beforehand, support them whilst they're kind of out on their year in industry as well. And, trying our best to kind of integrate them back into their final year too. So I work alongside Jess in the employability team as well. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's great. Seeing as you mentioned Jess, would you like to go next?
Yeah, okay. So I am employability consultant in the School of Management. So my job is a little bit different to Kia's in the fact that I support students to sort of get their jobs. So kind of from the very beginning with helping them with their CVs, application, finding those jobs, placements, part-time jobs, graduate work, whatever it is that they are looking for, and helping them kind of navigate the process, which can be quite long. So as you both know, so helping with interviews, assessment centres, and then hopefully at the end we get to kind of celebrate the success when the students get those jobs. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I think I've been in this role for 6 years now, which has flown. So yeah, that's a little overview of what I do.
Thank you for that. And Karen?
Hi, so I'm Karen, and as Chido mentioned, I work as the recruitment assistant in the School of Management. I've been there for around 2.5 years. I think I started not long after Kia, actually, probably about...
I think we started like roughly the same time.
there or thereabouts. Yeah. But my job really is to make sure that prospective students can have all the information that they need to decide whether going to university is right for them, and specifically coming to Swansea. So a lot of my job is running events or supporting with events, so that could be online, in person, traveling to different places, making sure people get the information they need. There's a lot of emails, a lot of different ways to really get the message out. But that's essentially what I do. So I don't work a lot with current students, unfortunately, unless I'm roping them in to speak about their experiences at these events, and mainly working with people thinking about coming to university.
Okay. That's great. I actually remember when Kia and Karen joined the School of Management, because we were like, they're young people. It was so nice. Especially I think with...
Jess, you're still young.
Yeah, of course.
I'm joking.
Yeah, more young people.
Exactly, more young people. And I remember, Karen, we had a conversation about just where you came from and the kind of, background you've had as well. Is that something that you'd be okay to share, like what your ethnicity background is, and for all of the panelists today?
Yeah, no, of course. So I'm mixed race. So my mum is from Ghana and my dad is British. So I'm a hybrid of the two. I was actually born in London and then moved to Wales from the age of 6. And then I was only brought up by my Ghanaian mother then for pretty much the rest of my upbringing. How did I end up in Wales is a very good question. I'm not too sure how we ended up in Wales in the first place, but we did. And then I ended up moving back to England when I was around 18, going to uni, studying clinical psychology and working in well-being. So ultimately, my goals, my aims, I suppose, are to help people feel better about themselves, to make sure they're making good choices. So I think that's kind of how I fell into this role, because I wanted a bit of a change. And then I ended up, moving back to Swansea to be near a family, and then starting here.
We're glad you came to Wales.
Jess?
So I am also mixed race. So my dad is Indian and my mum is, well, she's actually Welsh, but she's lived in England all her life. So yeah, I'm from Shropshire, which is, and I'm from a village called Llanablodwell, which is really, really rural and sounds Welsh, but is in England. So yeah, it's kind of, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, basically, and obviously went to school in Wales, because it's very, very sort of on the border. I went to uni in Aberystwyth, and then I moved back home to my parents, and I worked sort of around Shropshire for a bit. I don't know how I ended up in Swansea. I had a few friends kind of down here and I used to visit, and then I just started looking for jobs, and then I was lucky enough to get this job, and then suddenly thought, okay, I've got to move my whole life on my own to Swansea in sort of 2 months, but that all worked out well, luckily, and I'm really glad that I am here, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's sort of my background.
You forgot to mention that you are technically the producer, director.
Okay, yeah, so I worked with Chido and Natasha on this series. I think we started the discussion in summer last year. It was kind of August time maybe, and it just stemmed from a conversation that we were all having about sort of the Black Lives Matter movement and how it would be good to sort of create a series. So I've really enjoyed working on this with both of you, and it's nice to be part of a video as well.
Thank you.
Who's like our video editor? So it's we've got the whole team here.
Yeah.
You know, Kia, would you like to share a bit about your background, ethnicity background, where you grew up, how you ended up in Swansea?
Okay, cool. So my mum is Filipino, and my dad is Welsh. So without rambling on, I've kind of lived in a lot of different places. I was born in Abu Dhabi. That's where my parents met. They were both working abroad at the time. So yeah, lived there for a few years. Also moved back to the Philippines for a couple of years, which was nice. I was very young, so I can only remember kind of a few little bits, but you know, that was really good. And yeah, because of like my dad's job and things, we moved around quite a lot. So I've lived in kind of China, lived in the Middle East, yeah, so kind of dotted around everywhere. When I was about, I think 10 or 11, moved back to Swansea kind of permanently. I don't really know why, which is what everyone keeps saying, but yeah, you know, just felt really at home kind of in Swansea. I guess you know, that's where my dad and his family are. But yeah, I lived kind of majority with my mum, so it's like being me and my mum mainly. So that was really nice to kind of, you know, see her culture and, you know, obviously my culture as well, and experience it from both sides. But yeah, so here I am. I obviously love Swansea, fell in love with it. You know, I think moving around a lot, it was nice to find kind of one place to be in. So obviously stayed in Swansea to do my degree, and didn't go very far, stayed in Somme. Yeah, and here I am.
Awesome. So I guess when it comes to the conversation of race, of course, it's been the conversation that has been happening for, you know, I suppose as long as race has been a thing. But especially, I think, I was about to say this year, but I guess it all kind of feels like it's merged together. 2020, we had everything come up with Black Lives Matter, and you know, I feel like it was more than just a thing about, you know, Black people, you know, coming out and speaking about their race and the inequalities, but I feel like it woke up something around the whole conversation about race in the workplace, like across different ethnicities. Do you think that, did anything spark within you after that happened regarding your own ethnicity? Any thoughts that you've had? I don't know, anything? I'll start with Kia, and then we'll...
Yeah, I think, you know, it did really make me think about kind of my race, my background and culture, and like, you know, like even my friends and family and everything, and just, you know, wanting to kind of educate myself more. I think I kind of, you know, looked back at kind of where I grew up and schools I went to, and there was always the, you know, joining a new school and people saying like, oh, you know, where are you from? And then I say, you know, I'm kind of British, and then people would say kind of, yeah, but where are you really from? You know, I think everyone's kind of experienced that probably. Yeah, and you know, just being, I think I struggled with kind of being proud of kind of that part of my culture. And I think, you know, especially kind of last year, it's made me think, you know, it's good to be different. You know, it's good to kind of own that. And I think, yeah, I think it's really given me the chance to kind of, you know, educate myself on, you know, Black Lives Matter, all cultures, and you know, that amount on kind of social media, that's really helped, you know, books, movies, like everything, and just being really aware, and you know, being able to kind of educate myself on calling other people out. I think that's been really important, and that's something that I'm glad that I've been able to kind of educate myself on. So yeah, I don't know, Jess and Karen, if you have kind of anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think very similar to Kia, and I know we've had sort of conversations about it as well, sort of both of us. I would say that it definitely sort of struck a nerve with me, if that's the right saying, but I've come from sort of this rural background, and I would say the majority of the people sort of in my school were white, and same with university in Aberystwyth, and even same probably in Swansea. And I think same as Kia, I've got this sort of culture at home where my dad is very Indian. He like blasts Indian music out all the time. He's constantly cooking Indian food. He speaks Hindi or Punjabi, speaks both. But I very much have kind of sort of locked that away and not really kind of brought that out as part of my personality, and I think I really tried to just fit in. And even though I am born in this country and, you know, and everything like that, I don't think I've actively like spoken about my culture that much, and I think I was quite a shy teenager. So, you know, I remember actually being in like a geography lesson where they were talking, where a topic was around India, and I remember feeling quite conscious and embarrassed, which I'm really sad about now. But it's definitely something I definitely, when this all happened last summer, I look back at my life and it made me think of kind of lots of situations that where this had maybe had a bit of an impact. So I think it's really good there is this conversation, and as Kia said, it's brilliant that people are becoming more aware. There's lots more kind of information out there on social media. I'm learning a lot. This conversation is brilliant. So I think it's kind of a journey to try and become more, yeah, be proud of who you are and be proud of your background and culture. So yeah, it definitely did hit something with me, if that explains it well.
It does. That's brilliant.
I relate to so much, as both Jess and Kia have said, a lot of what you said, particularly what Jess was saying about growing up in a kind of rural area and being maybe the only person of colour in a certain space. And I think with what happened last year, I spent a lot of time thinking about that, or a lot of my experiences or memories kind of came back to the forefront. And that was quite eye-opening, exhausting. There was a lot of emotions around all of this. And I know I can't change maybe how I felt about myself in the past, because I think even though I wasn't necessarily a shy person in school, I would try my absolute best to fit in with people around me, because nobody at that age wants to be the person to stand out. Whereas since last year, and more so since growing up, standing out isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's a great thing. And people need to see difference in spaces, particularly in the workplace and particularly in kind of higher paid roles. We need that representation. So yeah, it's a lot of food for thought.
Yeah, I think that echoes sentiments that we as students were feeling as well. I think you've all mentioned a little bit about accepting your culture and, you know, reflecting back on growing up. I know that was something that was similar that happened to me as well. And just thinking to myself, okay, well, you know, what does my background mean for me? I know there's someone that I follow on LinkedIn, and something she says is package your own uniqueness. And I think accepting your background and your ethnicity, your culture, you know, all the different places that you may have grown up, or however you identify or categorize yourself, I think it's so important to really reflect that. And as students, it's been, well, I assume it's easier for us to speak about these things because we're not, you know, we don't have money on the line. So, again, a whole other reason as to why we say thank you for being here.
I was going to mention, I think something that probably resonates with all of us as well is I watched a good TED talk the other week, and it was somebody who was half Punjabi and half English, and he talked about being both, not half. And I think I've always referred to myself as half Indian and half English, but I really liked what he was saying about actually you are like both, and not, you don't have to separate the two, which I think we all kind of said that we've done.
Yeah,
exactly. I love that. How has, you know, all the reflection that you've been doing on your ethnicity, on culture, how has that affected work? How has that affected your engagement with students? Has it informed you since the BLM resurgence? Has there been any, I suppose, internal change within you or within your departments?
I think it's just made me want to help more, if that makes sense. So I think in our employability team, it's more kind of, we've got more of an awareness, and there's more statistics maybe highlighted around like the discrepancies that go on. And so I think we want to do more to kind of push the opportunities that help Black, Asian, minority kind of students. For example, we've just promoted like the Santander Black Inclusion Programme. Morgan Stanley have a similar programme coming out that we'll be pushing. So I think there is more that needs to be done, but it's making sure that we are sort of highlighting these opportunities and being aware of it, whereas rather than just kind of treating everybody the same. I don't know if would you add anything to that, Keith?
yeah, I think like, you know, when speaking to different students, I just want them to feel like as comfortable as possible and like who they are, you know, where they're from, you know, their culture, everything. And know that, you know, they shouldn't be kind of scared to not go for different opportunities just because they think, you know, oh, I'm the only kind of person that will go for that, or, you know, I might not get it because of X, Y, and Z. I think, you know, just making them kind of as confident as possible and kind of going for those opportunities and, you know, just being them as much as possible. And, you know, being the change that kind of people want to see and that you want to see. You know, I think, you know, don't be afraid to kind of be that change, you know, educate other people, kind of use your position to say, you know, this isn't right, or, you know, we need to kind of be better here. And I think, yeah, you know, me and Jess have talked about it a lot. And I mean, we want to kind of better, you know, our services and, you know, be more inclusive and, you know, make sure those opportunities are kind of out there for, you know, BAME students and, you know, even staff as well. You know, I think we kind of need those initiatives and we need people to kind of talk about it, which, you know, I think this is such a good platform for it. But yeah, do you have anything to kind of add to that, Karen?
Yeah, although my role is slightly different, I remember from my interview for this actual role that I said the thing that appealed to me the most was being able to support students that think that maybe higher education isn't for them and make them aware that actually higher education can be for them if they want it to be for them, and to look at barriers to higher education and how we can actually challenge some of those or support to manage some of those. So be that maybe not having the qualifications that you think you might need, or that could be financial. And now we're talking about race. So maybe I didn't think about that so much previously as being a massive barrier, but actually some students may perceive that as being a problem, and being able to offer support and actually maybe reach more of these students is something that is definitely something that we need to work on and something we are trying to do. So I do think, although everything that happened, particularly last year, was difficult, it is kind of sparking change, and it's making us more aware that actually, are we missing something? Is there something else that we can do? Are we reaching all these people? Are students feeling like they can't come for just purely for the reason that they look, the colour of their skin? And if so, that shouldn't be an issue. We're in 2021. So if a student wants to come here, there is a space for them here. And if you think you don't want to come because you can't see someone that looks the same as you, then that just means there's a gap in the market. So go and fill it.
That's brilliant. I think especially that bit about there's a gap in the market. I think you go through so much, and I, you know, for me personally, I know when it came to thinking about work, I was like, geez, I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm African. Like, I'm not even from here. Where do I even begin to climb this? And throughout, like, over the years, it has been a thing of really learning. And sometimes I always say, sometimes you need to know before you know, because I just had to keep telling myself that I am capable. Like, I can't change my race. I can't change where I come from. You know, that is part of who I am. And it's about accepting that that's something I can't change, but I am a hard worker. You know, I am passionate. I do want to succeed, and focusing on those things that you actually can control. But it's hard because, you know, you move around and there's always a million and one voices that go, but you're Black, you know, it's tough out here, you know, or you're from Africa. Are you really going to get the money together? And it's hard. And I think it's really important to have voices and people that actually have the heart to actually encourage people and go, you know what, you actually can do this, but also within the School of Management to say, you're here for a reason, so you can do so much more. And with that, I guess I would ask, you know, in what ways, I know you've definitely touched on, you know, how you support and, you know, your personal views towards your work, but how do you think that within SOM specifically, or even within the wider university, we could proactively empower students or support them with these issues, especially around race, be it around confidence or even just employability? How could we do that?
I think building sort of more networks of kind of students that are like in the same position and thinking the same things, but maybe not talking about it. Because I would say probably that there maybe isn't the platforms, or you may talk about it in your friendship groups, but maybe having something that is organised that actually puts the structure in place to develop confidence and actually challenge the beliefs that you may have yourself that aren't true, or look at ways to change the system. I don't know, maybe not that one, but having sort of this a bit of a community potentially may help kind of students to sort of feel less alone. And I think if the support is put in place by School of Management, then that would be a really good initiative. And I think it's kind of seeing that the support is put in place, but also seeing that it's being invested from sort of a higher level. I think Karen, you mentioned that earlier. It's really, really important that we're seeing that it is like the Vice Chancellor or, you know, whoever are putting importance in kind of this confidence building or challenging the sort of the system as it is and the structural racism that can be part of some organisations. I think I am sort of bambling here, so feel free to
I completely agree with what you're saying. I think personally, support networks within SOM are probably a good idea. I know some of the colleges do have networks like BAME networks. I know that's not a perfect term, but networks that allow students then to talk about some of the issues that they're kind of facing, any concerns they might have. So that hearing from other students and their experiences can kind of make you feel a bit more empowered, and also just make you feel a little bit less alone. And in looking at sort of a network, this is something I was thinking of potentially starting myself, but at the time of everything going on last year, as horrible as it sounds, I was thinking, do I actually want to take on the challenge of starting this network? Is this something that actually other people will engage in? Is it just, am I just playing, because someone has said, you know, you're just playing the race card, which really hurt, but actually it is something that is important. And I'm really grateful to be invited along to this conversation, to be reminded that actually, if not you, then who? So even though I've seen something, I think that's awful, that should change. If I'm not willing to change it, why should the expectation be put onto other people to change it if I'm not willing to do the same? So I think that's probably a starting point anyway, and actually hearing more from our students' voices, and I guess our staff as well, will have a better idea of how we can make things better in the future and just going forward.
Yeah, I think I can relate so much with that exhaustion of, do I have to be the one that starts this initiative? Do I have to be the one that, voices these opinions and gets people together? It's definitely something that I felt before as well. In addition to that, just the feeling of over-explaining my position, over-explaining my race as well. I'm not sure if any of you have ever experienced that same level of fatigue of just, okay, this is why people are upset. This is, why people are protesting. Or have any of you ever experienced something like that before?
Completely sorry to jump in again to speak, but a lot of questions have come kind of my way, particularly, start of this year, last year. And I'm generally quite happy to answer questions. As you can probably tell, I'm quite happy to talk. And it is nice that people want to be more aware and to learn, and that's great. However, it is a lot to take on, to hear the same things maybe over again. They're quite difficult topics. And there's not only the element of people wanting to learn, there's the element of trying to prove something to people that might be skeptical that there is still a problem, or skeptical that there's a problem the problem only exists in America, it doesn't exist in the UK. So trying to, I don't know, take on all of this and represent an entire kind of body of people is really difficult. And then that's compounded with, I don't know if it's just myself, but feelings of frustration, feelings of guilt when I don't have the answers. And particularly looking at something like Black history, when I grew up in Britain, so I grew up with the same curriculum as people my age, which, I can tell you a lot about Henry VIII's 6 wives, but I might not be able to tell you everything that you want to know about Black history. And that makes me feel ashamed. I mean, it also makes me feel aware that I need to learn myself, and I need to do my research, and I have been reading more. But that in itself, compounded with the fatigue that you mentioned, has been quite challenging.
That's sorry, Jess, you look like you're about to say something.
I think just drawn on the school curriculum and the history point, I think similar boat, and kind of in terms of my culture and my background, I think it's kind of obviously Britain had played a massive part in India's history, which I feel like we didn't learn anything about, and I just learned through kind of my family and that kind of stuff. So I think you're right, it's kind of like that, I don't know how to describe it really, but no, I feel like I can't describe it well, but I think it's I don't know what I mean, but it's sort of, I can't, it's like, something, but maybe it's not common knowledge. I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you there, Jess. I think, because like when I was like younger, especially, you don't have that confidence to kind of, shout about your culture and things. And I think I had to do a lot of like, oh, the Philippines, do you know where that is? And people be like, oh, I've never heard about it before. And you having to be like, oh, well, it's in Asia, and kind of like over explaining and like where it is and, what the background is. And, I think it's like, I feel a little bit sad that it's taken me so long to kind of be proud of it and like researching it and like educating myself on it. And like, like you say, Karen, like with, what children are taught in school, like it's not inclusive, and it should be. I think, it should be just regularly talked about, with everything. I think, it's sad that I didn't find stuff out until kind of, last year because of, the resurgence of like BLM. And, I was a little bit ashamed of that. So I think, there should be a platform for that, in schools and universities, and, there should definitely be a change with that.
Sorry, Tash, go on.
I was going to say, I mean, we've touched a lot on, students and our experience and the support that can be given to us. How do you think that you can create I guess, a culture of sharing and having these kinds of conversations, even from the workplace point of view, because I mean, very soon we're going to be going into the workplace. And I think it's a lot easier to, you know, talk to Jess and organize something so that we can keep the conversation going. But within the workplace, how do you become an agent of change, you know, so to say, around these topics? I mean, I know that's a big question.
It's
a bit large.
It is a very good question. And you girls have really kind of led by example in a way that maybe the staff, us as staff, maybe haven't done. So it's a shame that you're leaving us so soon, as it feels. But in a way, you're showing that this can be done. And you guys are students, so there's no reason at all why us as staff members, as I don't know, paid bodies of the university can't carry this forward. It is just something that the ball just needs to get rolling. Is something is better than nothing, and it might not be perfect to start with, but just encouraging a space where people might want to share. And I guess that needs to, if I'm talking now, that might need to start with me. So I need to show that I'm open to share things that have happened that maybe haven't been so great, or you know, that might be difficult to speak about. But actually in doing that, I'm hoping that other staff members and maybe other students will feel like, actually, maybe I should go to a network or go and speak to Karen, because actually I know that she's maybe experienced something similar.
Yeah, and I think we haven't had this conversation before until today, have we? And I think it feels really nice to actually have this conversation. So yeah, I think it's establishing those sort of networks and meetings, or just like social groups where like you say, Karen, it doesn't have to be like a really formal thing, but getting the ball rolling on something where there is that platform to discuss. I did join, there's the Swansea International Race Equality Network. Really long. I wrote it down so I remembered it. So I've only been to one of those meetings, but again, I really sort of enjoyed being part of that community. It wasn't anything to do with my job, but it was a meeting that I kind of got a lot from, and it was nice to see other members of the university who had the sort of same passion. So I think maybe something through that, or maybe encouraging more people to join that, so that there are more of these conversations and there'll be staff kind of coming from the whole university.
That would be good. You've spoken about some of the support systems that you would like to see happen throughout the university. Are any of you aware of any systems right now that can help students process through, I guess, race within university, really? Are any of you aware of any support?
So I know we've got the BAME Student Advisory Board that Teresa, who you've had on the series, is working on, and I think she's doing a lot of work around this. And I know she's she's amazing, and she's kind of working with the Vice Chancellor and sort of people that are high up within the university to make those changes. So I think that would be really good. I think we have a lot of support for students in the uni and in some. I don't think we say kind of specifically this is for BME students. There's not that sort of separation at the moment. I don't know if you two would agree with that. I think it's kind of the support is there, you can access it. That's from my point of view, that's kind of what I've seen.
Yeah, I think you know, there's always space to kind of do better. And I think, you know, even this conversation is just making us aware of that, and like more aware of, you know, what may be kind of lacking or what we could kind of improve on. So yeah, I definitely think, you know, there's kind of more space to kind of do better in, and, you know, hopefully something kind of will come from that. And, you know, even if we were kind of the change for it. But yeah, that's kind of my view on it.
Wow, this has been quite the conversation.
Yes.
I guess maybe a way to round this off would really be to ask you if you have any words of wisdom that you can give to BAME students that may be fearful of entering the workplace due to hearing about all these racial injustices that happen. I think it can be very crippling to think about a future where you constantly have to fight this thing that you can't change. So what advice would you give to students going into work, and even those that are in university and just struggling navigating the racial conversations and injustices? I don't know if anyone is particularly eager to go first.
I would say, and it's a hard one to say it like this, but I don't think fear is a good enough reason to not do something. So I'm not saying that fear isn't real, and anxiety in particular isn't real and might stop you from putting yourself into those spaces. But actually, if you have a goal to do something, or you want to, you don't lose anything by trying. So if you want to go for a job, apply for the job. That's all you can do in that space. And like you were saying earlier, Natasha, you can control your own actions. And it's unfortunate that we can't control other people's actions, because I think that would make life a lot easier in some respects. But you can try your best to put yourselves in those positions to actually get to where you want to be. That doesn't necessarily mean things will be easy, but if there is a gap, go for it. If you think I need to go for a job that is paid lower because I don't know, it will be easier for me, that's not a good enough reason either. Always apply for a job that is a couple of pay grades higher than what you were aiming for in the first place. I think as women, we don't do that enough either. So yeah, and as I said earlier, if just because you don't see people that look like you, that's not a good enough reason to not go for something either. You can be the person to go and fill the gap.
I really like kind of what you say there, Karen, in terms of, being that person to fill that. And I think, especially if you're from like a different culture and you're not kind of, what the norm is, you can really talk yourself out of situations really easily. You can be like, oh, well, I'm not this enough, or I'm not that enough, or, we've all done it, I'm sure. But I think it's, being confident enough to just go ahead and apply for that role. And, once you're in that position, like I said earlier, be the change that you want to see. And, if you see things that could be done better, kind of educate people in that way. And, people may be afraid to ask those questions, in case they kind of, if they're not asking it in the right way, or, some people might think they rather not have the conversation than kind of, approach it in the wrong way. But I think, if you find yourself in that position, I think it's so beneficial. And I think, things do need to kind of be, stay on that on role of like changing. I think 2020 was it came at a time of a pandemic as well, and I think people had that time to educate themselves, which is maybe the only good thing of COVID. But I think that was like so good, and I think the more people are educating themselves, the more that they can kind of take it with them in all aspects of their life. And have those conversations. I know, like, me and my friends had those conversations, when we talked about it, and it wasn't something that we'd ever talked about before. And I've got friends of kind of like all different backgrounds, and we all were able to kind of talk about how we felt in certain situations, and like educate each other. So I think if you can do that like in the workplace as well, and then have that kind of top-down approach as well, to kind of change things and create kind of more opportunities, then I think that can be really positive.
I would also say, I think that like sums it up fantastically. I don't think there's much else to say, but I was going to say, don't be afraid to kind of approach people and sort of identify some sort of mentor, or someone that maybe is in the company already, who may, I don't know, they may have been there a while, but then you can sort of have some sort of sounding board, or have some sort of vibe and an ally sort of thing in the workplace to discuss these issues with, and they may be able to kind of help you with ways around it as well. So I think, yeah, it's nice to have kind of that approach, and I think that's again why this conversation is nice, because we've got this kind of was maybe the start of building a community. But I think by doing, talking to one person, that can naturally grow, and then that could cause like a big sort of culture shift. It may not happen really quickly, but it may be something that happens, well, over the next year or so, hopefully.
Oh, thank you for sharing. I've definitely been encouraged by these words of wisdom. I don't know about you all watching the video, but some of the key takeaways that I've had are, overcoming fear, stepping up to people and having these conversations, taking the time to really reflect and think about being comfortable in your own skin, essentially, and not being ashamed and being confident and allowing that to push you to have similar conversations, not just in your home, but essentially in the workplace, in a place where you can make change. Kia kept mentioning, I know Karen mentioned it, I know Jess implied it, Natasha lives it, being the change that you want to see. I think it's such an important piece of advice, not just for this, not just for race relations, but for life in general. So thank you, ladies. This has honestly been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much.
having this conversation.
Anytime.
I think that is a wrap. Please do go out there. Remember that you are enough and keep having conversations about race and difficult things, because wonderful things can come from that. So until our next video, stay safe, smile, and have a great week. Bye.
Bye.